Dentist. When I see her, we always spend half the time talking about our families and about our kids and the challenges of raising teenagers.
Geller was home Thursday morning when she saw the news.
I actually texted Cerina because I didn't think it was real and asked her, "Are you okay? And what's going on?" And then shortly later, I heard that it was real and was just shocked, horrified. It feels surreal.
Cerina Fairfax. Anyone who knew her knew she was an amazing woman. Kind, good, a great dentist, faithful to her patients and her community, and faithful and loyal to her husband at the most difficult and dark moment ever for their marriage and for their family. Cerina didn't deserve her ending. Cerina did not deserve what Justin did to her.
Annandale, Virginia, April 16th, 2026, just past midnight. A teenager picked up his phone and called 911. He told the dispatcher his mother was in the basement. She was on the ground. She was not moving. Somewhere else in that same house, his father's location was unknown. The car was still in the driveway. Officers responded to the 8100 block of Guinevere Drive. What they found inside that home would make national headlines before sunrise. 2 teenagers lived in that house. By morning, they had no parents. This was not a random act. This was not a break-in. Everything that happened that night had been building for years, through courtrooms, financial records, and a marriage that had quietly come apart at the seams. So how does a man who once stood at the edge of becoming the most powerful politician in the state of Virginia end up here? That is exactly what we are going to answer today. Welcome to the Crime Edition. In today's case, we are going to reveal the latest updates in the case of Justin and Cerina Fairfax. This is a case that shook Virginia, stunned the political world, and raised serious questions about a system that saw the warning signs and still could not stop what was coming. So stay with us, because this story goes much deeper than the headlines. If you are new here, subscribe now. Every day, we go deeper into the cases the headlines skim over, the evidence, the records, the details that never make the front page. Hit the like button and tell us where you are watching from. We read every single comment. Now, let's get into it. To understand what happened inside that home on Guinevere Drive, you first need to understand who these 2 people were. Because this was not a case involving strangers. This was a family. And on the surface, it looked like one that had made it. Justin Edward Fairfax was born on February 17, 1979 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His parents divorced when he was young. His mother moved the family into his grandparents' home in Northeast Washington, D.C., a neighborhood that at the time was dealing with poverty, crime, and a serious drug epidemic. Justin grew up watching people around him get pulled under by that environment. He was determined to go in a different direction. He won scholarships to Duke University, where he graduated with a degree in public policy. Then he earned his law degree from Columbia Law School, where he was selected as an editor of the Columbia Law Review, one of the most selective legal publications in the country. After graduation, he clerked for a federal judge, worked on Al Gore's presidential campaign, staffed the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, and became a federal prosecutor in Virginia, working in the Major Crimes and Narcotics Unit and the Human Trafficking Task Force. In 2017, he ran for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia and won, becoming the second Black American ever elected to statewide office in Virginia. By 2018, he was standing next to the governor at the inauguration, widely seen as a future contender for the state's top job. People were already talking about him as a potential governor, possibly beyond that. Standing beside him that day was his wife, Dr. Cerina Fairfax. Born on February 24, 1977, Cerina grew up in Prince William County, Virginia, and attended Woodbridge High School. Like Justin, she had not started from a position of advantage. She built everything she had through consistent work and focus. She earned her undergraduate degree at Duke University, where she and Justin first met, and then went on to earn her Doctor of Dental Surgery degree from Virginia Commonwealth University's School of Dentistry in 2005. VCU honored her with an alumni award. She opened her own practice, Dr. Fairfax and Associates Family Dentistry, and established a loyal patient base in the Fairfax community.
Patients described her as warm, attentive, and genuinely committed, not just to her patients, but to community outreach, charity work, and her children. Friends described her as the steady center of her family. She practiced yoga, went on trail runs with her Vizsla dogs, loved to travel, and by every account, kept her household grounded through quiet, consistent effort. They married in June 2006. They had 2 children, a son and a daughter. From the outside, this was a family that had built something real. But by 2019, the ground beneath Justin Fairfax had already started to shift. In February 2019, 2 women came forward publicly with serious allegations against Justin Fairfax. The incidents they described were said to have taken place years earlier, before his marriage to Cerina, but they became public at the worst possible moment in his political career. The first woman, Dr. Vanessa Tyson, a university professor, stated that Fairfax had behaved inappropriately toward her during the 2004 Democratic National Convention in Boston. At the time, Fairfax was a Columbia law student working as an aide to Democratic vice presidential nominee John Edwards. Dr. Tyson said she had kept the experience to herself for years, only beginning to speak about it after seeing a photograph of Fairfax tied to an article about his political rise in 2017. 2 days after Dr. Tyson came forward, a second woman, Meredith Watson, issued her own statement. Watson alleged that Fairfax had behaved wrongly toward her in 2000 when they were both undergraduates at Duke University, the same institution where Justin had later met and married Cerina. Fairfax denied both sets of allegations firmly and publicly. He stated that every interaction had been consensual. He said he took a polygraph examination and passed it. He was never charged with any crime, but the political consequences were swift and lasting. The timing added another layer to an already complicated picture. At that same moment in early 2019, Governor Ralph Northam was under enormous pressure to step down after a photograph from his 1984 medical school yearbook surfaced, a photograph showing 2 figures, one in blackface and one in a hate group costume. Northam's potential resignation would have automatically elevated Fairfax as lieutenant governor to the governor's seat. He would have made history. But Northam did not step down, and that moment passed. Fairfax ran for governor regardless. He finished 4th in the Democratic primary. His career at that level was effectively finished. What followed, according to court documents filed later during the divorce, was a sustained withdrawal. Justin Fairfax pulled back from public life, from his family's daily routines, and over time from the obligations that had once defined him. Court records stated that Justin had developed what he described as undefined emotional and psychological issues that were, in the judge's own words, in fact, defining him. That same judge noted how significantly the 2019 allegations had likely shaped this decline, acknowledging that Justin had been an ascendant political figure on the edge of a serious run for governor, and that the public allegations appeared to have ended those plans entirely. But the personal deterioration was only one part of what was collapsing. The financial picture was deteriorating just as quickly, and perhaps even more quietly. After leaving office in January 2022, Justin Fairfax set up a solo legal practice from his home. For someone with his background, a Columbia law degree, years as a federal prosecutor, and a 4-year term as the second highest elected official in Virginia, building a private practice should have been within reach. It was not. The financial records filed during the divorce proceedings tell a precise and revealing story. In 2023, his home-based legal practice brought in more than $400,000. By 2024, that figure had dropped to $11,000. By November 2025, his recorded income was zero. A friend who later spoke to the New York Post was direct about it. After the 2019 controversy, Justin could not find consistent work. The friend did not know who his clients were. It appears very few people did.
Court records show he was sued twice in debt collection cases tied to unpaid balances. Both cases ended in default judgments in favor of the creditors. He stopped paying the mortgage on the family home. Meanwhile, Cerina was running her dental practice and, according to filings, was largely carrying the household expenses on her own: the mortgage, the children's private school tuition, and the costs of their daily lives. One detail in particular drew significant attention from legal observers and the public alike. In 2020, while still serving as lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax had cast the tie-breaking vote on Virginia legislation that allows courts to temporarily remove access to firearms from individuals identified as a risk to themselves or others. He had spoken publicly about that law on multiple occasions. He called gun-related harm a national crisis. As recently as 2022, he was still publicly pointing to that law as evidence of meaningful progress. The man who cast the deciding vote for that protective legislation later purchased the weapon used in the events of April 16, 2026. Delegate Rip Sullivan, who had authored and championed that legislation, described the situation as a terribly painful irony. By mid-2024, Cerina had made a decision. She had previously tried to leave the marriage, and now she was making it formal. The legal separation began in June 2024, but the path forward, as she would discover, was far from simple. Cerina Fairfax filed for divorce on July 18, 2025. The filing described in legal terms what had been unraveling inside that household for years. She alleged that Justin had not honored his financial commitments under a postnuptial agreement the couple had entered into, an agreement that covered the mortgage, their children's private school costs, extracurricular expenses, and other household obligations. According to Cerina's filings, those obligations had gone largely unmet. Virginia law requires a mandatory separation period before a divorce can be finalized, 1 full year when children are part of the household. That requirement, designed with reconciliation in mind, meant that despite the separation, despite the formal filing, and despite everything on record in those court documents, Justin and Cerina Fairfax remained under the same roof, in separate bedrooms, in the same house on Guinevere Drive, with their 2 teenage children. Justin did not cooperate with the timeline. Court records show he pursued legal arguments to delay the proceedings, claiming that Cerina had not explicitly stated her intention to divorce when the separation was agreed upon. Legal observers noted this appeared to be a tactic to reset the separation clock entirely, which would have extended the process significantly. He was representing himself throughout. Cerina had retained a law firm.
In January 2026, Justin called the Fairfax County Police Department. He reported that Cerina had physically confronted him. Officers responded and conducted an investigation. What they found, however, did not support his account. Cerina had, at some earlier point, installed security cameras at multiple locations throughout the home, a step she had taken as the divorce proceedings grew increasingly tense. Police reviewed that footage. The reported confrontation had not occurred. No action was taken against Cerina. Justin was not charged for the false report, though the findings of the investigation were fully documented. Those cameras remained in place. They continued recording. In March 2026, following a 2-day custody hearing, Fairfax County Circuit Court Judge Timothy J. McAvoy issued his ruling. Cerina was awarded primary physical custody of both children. Justin retained joint legal custody, but was required to submit to a breathalyzer check 1 hour before any visit with his children. Legal professionals who reviewed the order later raised concerns about the practical limits of that condition, noting that a person could satisfy the test and then resume drinking immediately after. The protection, they argued, had clear gaps. Judge McAvoy ordered Justin to leave the family home no later than April 30, 2026. For every day he remained beyond that deadline, he was to be fined $300. He was also ordered to repay Cerina for money owed under prior court decisions, and he was scheduled for a court appearance on April 21st, 5 days after the night of April 16th. The judge's written order did not soften its assessment. He described the tension inside the Fairfax home as having been extremely high for an extended period of time. He stated clearly that the living arrangement was worsening the situation. He referenced Justin's documented alcohol dependency, his psychological state, and his failure to pursue professional support. The judge wrote that he had little confidence that Justin was capable of objectively evaluating his own condition. And yet, with all of that in the official record, the March 30 order contained no protective order for Cerina, no requirement that Justin surrender or relinquish access to his legally owned firearm. Virginia's custody statute at the time did not mandate a formal risk evaluation even when a case file contained documented indicators as serious as these. Justin was served with additional court paperwork in the days leading up to April 16th. Paperwork confirming the details of his upcoming April 21 hearing. According to Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis, that paperwork is believed to have been a key factor in what happened next. The cameras were still running. If you are still with us, you already know this case goes far deeper than what most outlets covered. We are about to get into the events of April 16th, the timeline, the evidence, and what investigators confirmed in the hours that followed. If this is the kind of coverage you come here for, subscribe to the Crime Edition right now. We do this every time. Hit subscribe, and let's keep going. April 16th, 2026, just past midnight. Inside the home on Guinevere Drive in Annandale, Virginia, a teenager called 911. He told the dispatcher that his mother was in the basement, on the ground, and not responding. His father's location in the house was not known. Officers were dispatched immediately. Police arrived at the 8100 block of Guinevere Drive and secured the property. In the basement, they found Dr. Cerina Fairfax. She had lost her life. Justin Fairfax had left the basement and moved to another area of the home. Approximately 15 minutes after the first call came in, officers located him in the upstairs primary bedroom. He was also deceased, the result of a self-inflicted wound. Both deaths were confirmed at the scene. Both children were inside the home during these events. Their son had made the 911 call. Their daughter was also present. Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis addressed reporters the following morning and described the situation facing those children as deeply tragic and compounded by the fact that they had been in the home when it occurred. Investigators moved with urgency. A search warrant was obtained for the property. Physical evidence was collected at the scene, including items from both locations inside the home where the two individuals were found. The office of the chief medical examiner was called upon to formally confirm the cause and manner of death for both Dr. Cerina Fairfax and Justin Fairfax. The security cameras Cerina had installed throughout the home, the same cameras that had already recorded and contradicted Justin's false January claim against her, were active during the events of April 16. Police confirmed the footage was consistent with the account the couple's son had provided during his 911 call. Chief Davis stated at the briefing that the camera recordings would be central to the investigation going forward. Davis also confirmed that Justin had been served court documents in the days leading up to April 16, documents notifying him of his April 21 court appearance. That service of paperwork, Davis said, appeared to be what set these events in motion. He described the situation as the result of an ongoing dispute tied to what he called a complicated and difficult divorce process. At the morning press briefing, Davis put it plainly, "It's high profile in nature, it's tragic in nature. Certainly a fall from grace for a relatively high-profile family that seemingly had a lot of things going in their favor." By the time daylight reached Fairfax County, the investigation had confirmed what the cameras had recorded. Justin Fairfax, 47, had ended the life of Dr. Cerina Fairfax, 49, and then his own. Their two children, a 16-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter, had lost both parents in a single night. In the days and weeks that followed, a serious conversation began, not only about Justin and Cerina Fairfax, but about the institutions that are built to prevent exactly this kind of outcome. The court record in this case was not limited. Judge McAvoy's March 30 custody order was thorough.
It documented Justin's sustained pattern of heavy daily drinking. It referenced a 2022 incident in which Justin had purchased a legally owned firearm using money originally set aside for his children's horseback riding lessons, and then left the family home with that firearm and a packed suitcase. Family members conducted a frantic search and eventually found him in the wooded area of a public park near the house. They could not get him to calm down over the course of several hours. His brother ultimately reached a mental health professional who met with Justin at 1 a.m. in a mall parking lot. The judge wrote that it was apparent Justin had been going through a serious adverse psychological event on that day. There was no evidence that he had sought consistent professional support following that incident. The judge also had knowledge of the January 2026 false report Justin had filed against Cerina. He was aware of the escalating atmosphere in the home. He described the shared living arrangement as untenable. And yet, the order that came out of that 2-day hearing did not include a protective order for Cerina. It did not require Justin to give up access to the firearm he had purchased in 2022. At the time, Virginia's custody statute had no mechanism requiring courts to conduct a formal threat or risk evaluation, even in cases where the documented history was as detailed and concerning as this one. Family law attorney Randy Kessler, speaking publicly in the immediate aftermath, pointed to Virginia's mandatory 1-year separation requirement as a structural flaw with real consequences. Under that law, couples with children are legally required to remain separated and often physically cohabitating for a full year before a divorce can be granted. Kessler noted that being formally served with divorce documents carries significant psychological weight, regardless of how long a person has understood that the marriage is over. The paperwork makes it real. It puts custody arrangements, asset division, and financial obligations into black and white. For a person whose emotional and psychological stability is already compromised, that document can function as a final loss of control over everything that remains. Justin was managing all of that without an attorney. Cerina had professional legal representation. He was a trained lawyer, watching an opposing legal team systematically address his finances, his access to his children, and his right to remain in his own home. He was doing so alone while dealing with alcohol dependency and unaddressed psychological decline that a sitting judge had formally noted in writing. Then there is the matter of the protective legislation that Justin himself had helped create. As lieutenant governor, he had cast the deciding vote to establish Virginia's red flag statute, a law designed to allow courts to temporarily limit firearm access for individuals who present credible indicators of risk to themselves or those around them. He had promoted that law publicly. He had celebrated it. The 2022 park incident, a man found in a wooded area in a serious psychological state, requiring emergency mental health intervention over the course of several hours, was precisely the type of situation the law was intended to address. It was not invoked. Following the events of April 16, Delegate Rip Sullivan's 2 updated red flag bills were signed into law by Governor Abigail Spanbanger. The legislature began formal discussions about whether courts should be required to order risk evaluations in contested custody cases where the record shows documented indicators of concern. Advocates from the Virginia Sexual and Domestic Violence Asylums raised the broader issue of the financial circumstances that trap separating couples in shared living situations long after those situations have become unsafe. The question that lawmakers, legal professionals, and advocates were left with was straightforward. At what point does a documented pattern of risk become a legal obligation to intervene? The case file had alcoholism, a 2022 firearms incident, a false police report, a judge's own written concerns about psychological instability, and a court-ordered move-out deadline still weeks away. What combination of factors would have been sufficient? That question had no clean answer in April 2026. It still does not. In cases like this one, the person who was taken can sometimes be reduced to a supporting detail, a name attached to a headline. That is not what Dr. Cerina Fairfax deserves. Judge McAvoy's custody order, a legal document, not a personal tribute, described her in terms that carry more weight than most formal remembrances. The court determined that she had served as the primary caregiver for both children throughout virtually their entire lives. She was, in the judge's documented findings, the household planner, the scheduler, the person responsible for the children's education, their daily needs, their discipline, and their emotional stability. While Justin was withdrawing, Cerina was staying. While his professional life was collapsing, she kept her practice running, kept her children enrolled and supported, and continued handling what the household required. Her patients remembered her as a person who prioritized others before herself. Her colleagues at VCU's dental school remembered her as a mentor and a friend. The school's dean made a public statement in her memory. The Association of Black Women Physicians honored her. Virginia State Representative Jennifer McClellan released a statement. The Virginia Dental Association paid formal tribute. She had recognized what the situation in her home was becoming, and she had acted on it. She first attempted to leave the marriage 2 years before April 16. She initiated the formal legal process in July 2025. She retained a law firm. She installed cameras throughout the house. She documented what was happening. She went through every proper legal channel available to her. She did what she was supposed to do.